Well, I think a deal can be reached. Well, you have to get in position. We have plenty of time. If you remember Venezuela, we waited around for a while, and we're in no rush. I think we had the results today were with Iran. It was a meeting. We're going to meet again early next week, and they want to make a deal. Iran, as they should want to make a deal. They know the consequences. If they don't make a deal, the consequences are very steep. So we'll see what happens.
And President Trump giving a positive assessment of talks between the U.S. and Iran last week, but the president also sounding a note of caution if a deal is not ultimately reached. It all comes amid a buildup of U.S. military assets in the Middle East. So let's untangle this with retired General Jack Keane. He's a Fox News senior strategic analyst. Sir, before we get your take on this, Ambassador Michael Huckabee trying to explain why this is bigger than Israel.
Americans need to understand Iran's threat is not about Israel. It's about America. They've been saying death to America for 47 years. President Trump is just that. He's President Trump. He is not President Chump. He's not going to allow the Ayatollah to continue to play this along and somehow act like that he will never take action. He's already proven he will take action when he needs to, and when he does, it will not be mild.
General, what is your assessment of the situation now?
Yeah, well, certainly we're in a phase here that we've seen play out before with the Trump administration, and that is when he has a potential conflict with an adversary, is offering him a diplomatic way out of that before the execution of it. We saw it back prior to the June operation, Midnight Hammer, to destroy Iran's nuclear capability, and prior to the commencing the war that Israel did. Diplomatic overtures were made to Iran, and they refused them, and the result was the 12-day war and the United States' very successful operation. Same thing happened in Venezuela with Maduro, and that diplomatic option is being offered to Iran right now. I think Iran's motivations in this are kind of twofold. One, to drag out these negotiations as much as possible. And the advantage they see in doing that is it puts off the military operation itself and enables them to better prepare to defend against it, and also to be able to retaliate as a result of it. And then the second thing Iran has, and this is major motivation for them, is to make some kind of a deal with the Americans that would grant them sanction relief. Admittedly, it would likely be condition-based, based on their complying with the deal itself. But that is clearly what their objective is. And the reason for that is, as we have reported here time and again, their economy is in the tank. With this, no hope of recovery. And that is why the people are in the streets and really want a new regime, because they know this regime is not capable of changing the quality of their life experience. So that's where we are. I actually, even if we got a deal that's favorable to us, Dana and Bill, I think the preferred option is a military one, because if we get a deal with the Iranians, we know a couple of things. One, they're going to cheat. Two, they're not going to stop destabilizing the Middle East. They will continue to support their proxies, and they will continue to be aggressive against Israel, which may warrant even more military conflict, as a result of that. That's who the Iranians are. They'll continue to export terrorism itself, and they will cheat. We know they will cheat because we've been with them for 4+ decades. So I don't think it's a good option to extend the life of this regime for what? Maybe another 10 years or so? It doesn't make sense. To me, the military option, the one that the president is in the planning and preparation stage of, it is a preferred option here, because it sets the conditions for regime collapse. And it would likely be a combined operation with Israel and the United States. And what we're seeing now, the pacing for this operation is being driven by being able to move resources into the region to do two things. One, to help us defend, as well as the Israelis, against Iranians' retaliation attack, but also to make certain that this operation would likely not be a limited operation in terms of a one-night operation or 2 nights. This would be a comprehensive campaign combined with the stated purpose to set the conditions for a regime collapse. And that would mean the whole Iranian ecosystem in terms of what composes that regime, what sustains that regime, would be under attack, to include their military capability, obviously rockets, missiles, etc.
Well, we also know that the Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, will be visiting the White House this week. So we'll take all of that under advisement and be in touch with you as the week goes along. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.